Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, joining me today for, I have no doubt, a very interesting and insightful conversation is, I'm going to say she's a badass chiropractor, because I feel like, when I tell you who this is, those of you who know Dr. Michelle will agree that she's a fierce chiropractor, 30 years of practice. I know she's got lots of gems she's going to be sharing with us today. Dr. Michelle Whitney, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Actually, it's kind of been the highlight of my month.
Awesome. Well, just so your listeners, viewers, we're recording this September 29th. It's been a crazy 6 months, we'll say, and we'll get into some of that. But let's start, for the docs who don't know you. You've been in practice 30 years. Tell me about your story. Like, how did you become a chiropractor? What has your story been like the last 30 years? Have you always been in the same practice? Changes that have gone on, with your practice environment, if they have?
Yeah. Oh, well, many people know that my dad was a chiropractor, very well known, in the Canadian and also in the American scene, because he was the guy who basically taught young students and new grads how to transition into practice. Before that, he did do a practice management for, docs already in practice. So yeah, he was a pretty prolific guy, and he had some unusual ideas. I grew up, a lot different than most people, having grown up in a chiropractic family in the 60s. And I basically, from grade 10, that was it. I was going to be a chiropractor. And my sister Beck was the same. I mean, we all kind of waffled. But Dad would always remind us that no matter what you do, you're going to have a boss. Unless you become a chiropractor, you're going to work for somebody. And, what have you. We would say something, you go, no, you're going to have a boss for that. So I think that pretty much solidified it for me. As you know, I'm not a rules girl. I don't particularly like rules. I don't like being told what to do. You can gently nudge me, but I don't like to be pushed.
Yeah, I think that's why I like you, because there's definitely a connection there as far as personality. So you always knew, in grade 10, you knew that you wanted to become a chiropractor. You were raised, adjusted since you were a child. Your sister's a chiropractor. You and your sister practiced together.
Yeah, we finally got together about 10 years ago. I bounced around a bit. I was with a fellow in Guelph, Bill Ducla, for a couple of years, and then I bought my own building and ran my own practice for I think it's probably 14, 15 years. And then that was longer than that. I had Lily, my daughter, and, the practice shrunk. It became increasingly difficult to pay the bills, keep the practice numbers up. And I really didn't want to run the building anymore. I had massage therapists in there, homeopaths. I got tired of being a boss. I just wanted to practice. So my sister had an opening in her office. She and her business partner was a chiropractor. They had a falling out, so I went in and filled his spot, and that was just over 10 years ago. So finally, we're under the same roof, practicing together, and it's fun.
So what's interesting is that the whole time you were growing up, your dad was like, be a chiropractor because you don't want to be a boss. Then you get to be your boss, and you realize after a period of time, there's a lot of different hats that we wear, and some docs love it. Some docs love the roles they play administratively, team leading, more than they love adjusting, and that's great for them too. But for other docs, it's all encompassing and can be really overwhelming. And is that how you were feeling? Like when you were raising your daughter and practicing?
Yeah. I just didn't have the energy, really. I had her at 40, so not an ideal time to have a child, not a good practice building, thing to do, but that's just the way it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and when Beck and I have always wanted to be under the same roof, because she and two other guys split my dad's practice so she was the third one to come in when he his exit. So it just seemed like the natural thing to do to be together.
Yeah. And so
And
that was my question. You never worked with your dad, never practiced with your
oh,
dad.
I worked at the front desk with my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, for quite a while. But yeah, just as a CHA.
Mm-hmm. And it
So,
was never in the cards to practice with him?
well, Dad, what's really weird is Becky and I have outlived him in practice by, like, she's been in practice 35 years. He only practiced 25 years.
Hmm.
I've been in practice 30. So yeah, his passion was to teach
Yeah.
and, teach people how to, keep their business running, how to, and how to inspire patients, really.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, I think, part of the whole idea of the show, The Rockstar Doctor Life, is figuring out like who you are, what you're great at, and what
Yeah.
difference can you make as a chiropractor, and having clinical training, but realizing you want to help others grow their business, but you can understand their business because you were in practice.
Yeah.
That's a huge service and the value in our profession. Same with docs who do research and contributing to our profession, or
Yeah.
docs who help others build their team or come up with new diagnostic equipment. So there's a ton of value in different roles that we have. So 30 years later, like, what keeps you so inspired? Like, why are you still in practice?
That's a really good question. I was thinking about that before I had my daily nap. Quite frankly, Melissa, I don't need a lot of inspiration to get up and do what I do. I don't. I think just the people that I get to interact with every day, whether it's staff or, practice members, that's inspiration enough for me. I mean, I don't need to constantly be going to seminars, and even though, I was a big DE, goer for years, 3 times a year, we go down to DE. Although I think that's great, and in the beginning, it really kept me on purpose. But yeah, I don't require a lot of inspiration. I really don't.
No. And
Thank
so would you say that you're just motivated then by your passion for being a chiropractor, or for the chiropractic philosophy, or some pivotal moment in your life that, caused a shift in you internally that just gives you that kind of drive? Because docs listening to this right now may be feeling like stuck. They may be feeling uninspired. And so, sometimes it can be helpful to hear other people's stories.
Yeah, there was no pivotal moment. No, it's pretty boring, actually. The philosophy and the practice of chiropractic, and the evolving science of chiropractic,
Mm-hmm.
is inspiration enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that's just a little simplistic, but it's true. I don't need a lot. I'm actually pretty simple that way.
Well, I think let's be real. I mean, when we see the things we see in our practice every day, I've only been in practice for 18 years, but I'm fired up. I'm fired up this morning. This 6-week-old baby, I just adjusted him for the first time on Friday. The mom comes in today and she's like, we honestly think he has a totally different temperament now. He's been happy. He's been sleeping. He's just got this sense of ease in his body that wasn't there before. I'm like, and I was kind of like, yeah, like that's kind of what I described, and that's powerful just as much as it is the grandmother who's now, dancing with her grandkids and walking them to school in the morning because she's on track and she's feeling great. Like, that inspires me and makes me want to keep doing what I do. So
yeah. What else do you need, right? I mean, if that's not enough, you might consider a career change, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we get to do this every day, and no one else can do what we do. No one.
Mm-hmm. And yet not all chiropractors feel the same way as you, right? And you, to the point that you've been involved politically in your career, and really trying to protect, the art and philosophy of chiropractic, from attacks. Is that something that, your motivation to get involved politically, I'm guessing, came from your own needs and your own inspiration to do that. But was there any other, driving force behind that?
My dad was always political in the profession. He quit the OCA, at some point in time in life because of the politics that he didn't like. I actually have an honors degree in political science, so that may have spurred me on as well. I do kind of, I'm not going to say I like politics. I don't know who likes politics, but I kind of have I'm kind of driven towards that. I'm kind of inspired to, speak out and try to do the right thing. And so, getting elected to the CCO, I mean, I was only 4 years in practice when that happened. I had no idea what I was in for. And 2 years on that board was plenty for me, because I didn't feel I was making the changes within the profession that I could do outside of the governing body. So, there was a pivotal moment when I was down at DE listening to one of my mentors, Patrick Gentempo, talking about, something that really, really you want to do that you've been putting off. And that was the DE. I came home and began to think about putting the CAC together. And basically, it started there. And here we are. That was 96. A few years later, right? 24 years.
Yeah. And it doesn't, it makes me think of the quote, it doesn't take, I don't even know what their specific quote is, but it's like a few people committed to something, to a cause, can make a change, right? So you got together with colleagues, said we need to form a provincial association that's representing our values as chiropractors and protecting our rights to practice. So the Chiropractic Awareness Council was formed, and now it has since been rebranded as the Alliance for Chiropractic. And you're still involved with that. Any other political aspirations at this time in your life?
No, absolutely not. No. No. I can't play by those rules. So I'm better working behind the scenes. And that's what I'm doing right now, working with a small group of actually a number of the guys that were involved with starting the CAC were part of the COPO group, the Chiropractors on Principle, and we incorporated. We have a Facebook group, Chiropractors on Principle Ontario now, and now Chiropractors on Principle BC. So really, our reason for being is to help. Let's just say we'll advocate at the regulatory level for principled chiropractic. Neurologically based, subluxation based chiropractic to protect the way we practice. So it's I said to the guys, we're kind of like the special ops guys. We just kind of work behind the scenes. And it's hard work. It's exhausting mentally as well, because there's so much going on in the profession that is, in my opinion, not chiropractic, right? You've got the WFC doing whatever they do, the CCA, the OCA, like I don't even know what those guys are up to these days. It's just so pathetic. Sorry if I'm stepping on any toes, but it seems to me it's just one big sellout.
And so it's exhausting, but you're committed to it because you're mission based, is what I keep hearing. Like it's so deep in your core that this is what you want to do and what you stand for. Maybe it was ingrained in grade 10, I don't know, or solidified those moments at DE. But when you think about the mentors in your life and the docs who have shaped you, you've mentioned DE a number of times. I'm sure your father was an influence, but were there other programs or mentors or coaches that you had that really helped you define who you are as a doc today?
I spent a lot of time with Sigafus. Not surprising. But I wasn't a program doer. I asked my dad early in my practice whether or not I should get involved with a certain organization, and he said to me, "You know what, Shell? That guy kind of takes on disciples." He goes, "You're not a disciple." He goes, "No, that just wouldn't fit with you." And I attended many of my dad's courses. He was a scripting guy. I was never comfortable with that. It's okay to script, in my opinion, your front desk to a certain extent, but again, those are kind of rules I just can't play by. I have to be authentic. I have to be me. It's a cliche, but if I can't be comfortable saying something to a patient, a practice member, or, a prospective, I feel kind of inauthentic. You know what I mean?
Well, and I love the idea of, I appreciate where scripts came from, but what I teach often is frameworks, right? Like, have a framework for what you want to communicate to anyone, and then let it be organic and speak the way you would naturally speak, and use language that's familiar to you. Because, authenticity is it's always been a buzzword, but the truth of it is, if you're not being yourself, people see through that. And if you're speaking a language or saying things that don't really resonate with you, and I've been there. I remember saying things that I was told to say and feeling in the core of my being like, this is not right. These words are coming out of my mouth, but they don't sit well with me. It's not gonna connect with people in your practice. So I support that 100%. But when you think about, you talked about knowing yourself and being authentic. A lot of docs at all times in their life, short practice time, long practice in their 20s, 30s, 40s, like struggle with really getting clear on who they are and what they want in their practice. So, but you're very clear. It seems like you know who you are. Your family knew who you are. You've been always supported. What would be your advice to other people that just feel a bit lost or feel a bit unsure of themselves or lack the confidence and the clarity in themselves and they're in practice?
That's a really good question. And I can tell you that one of the things that helped me tremendously, and I'm not saying that this is something that everyone else should do, but I got certified in Kale upper cervical specific. There was a whole bunch of us that went down to South Carolina and did the training for Kale. And, for us, that was the be all end all. Like, man, if you were not upper cervical, you were not doing due diligence with chiropractic. And we were so certain that we knew, our adjustment was so specific. We just knew that we knew that we knew. And I mean, I've gotten away from doing the knee chest adjustments. I still do upper cervical a lot with Thompson, but it was probably the best thing I could have done at the time to increase my certainty. And I think that is something that's really lacking in many chiropractors, not just the young ones. That are you certain that you're doing what you're saying you're doing? And, Pat and Chris used to talk a lot about certainty. And you have to have that confidence. And, as most people tell you about if they know me, it's not something I lack. But and it doesn't matter if it doesn't have to be Kale, it doesn't have to be upper cervical, but having the tools in your toolbox that you can always rely on, and to affect that change that you're looking for in that patient. The one that's in front of you on the table, not the one that's coming in an hour or tomorrow, but person in front of you.
So clinical certainty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, focus on that and do what you can. I mean, it's challenging right now to think about, what's going to happen with technique seminars and the opportunities to learn and gather in person. We just had an event in Calgary. We were only able to have like 25 docs there because numbers, right? And I'm thinking, what's going to happen down the road? There's only so much you can learn off through a computer screen, especially when you're in a hands-on profession and you need to be around people. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at students. Like, what's going to happen with them? How do you learn chiropractic technique without laying your hands on a person? And it's just, and same with medicine. They're in the same boat, and physio, like all the hands-on professions.
Yeah.
On the same boat. But I mean, ours in particular, you seem to be deviating away from the adjustment at certain schools. And we don't need to go there. But anyway, introducing all this stuff that, these chiropractors are going to come out as physiotherapists, but second-rate physiotherapists. And even worse, chiropractors, because they're not learning proper technique.
Yeah, to me, there's nothing more physiologically powerful in the body than, great adjustment. When you see how it impacts people's lives, and even just from a strict mobility and back pain recovery and all the mechanical things, let alone the power neurologically, Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, and I think the visits to the office, I'm thinking about when I was a student, and probably when I first met you was before I got into chiropractic school, because I got to know Peter Amlinger at some of his events, the Wonders of Chiropractic events. And then I would go to his office, or I remember one year, I think I was in second year at CMCC, where I went and did like a little tour. It was reading week. And I went to, Brett Moore's office, Diane. I went to all these different chiropractors' offices to just observe them and see how they interacted. And I didn't make it to Guelph, but I think there's such value in just even observing other docs and seeing how the nuances of their practice style and the things that you can learn by observing their technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it into your own art.
Yeah. I mean, you go see a guy like Brett Moore, and you've got a real master that you're looking at, right? Like, he's so specific, and we've got a real collection of those kind of chiropractors, in our area, in the GTA, in Guelph Kitchener. We've got Scott Bales and Alliston, who's just an amazing upper cervical guy, just so knowledgeable. Yeah, I mean, and the students should be getting out to see these people,
Which would be, is that like your biggest advice to students, new grads? You maybe have a few pieces of advice for them, but what would you say to the new docs or the students who are listening? What would be your advice to them at this point, knowing everything you know about current state of affairs and chiropractic?
Well, when things sort of settle down and open up, get out to seminars, get out of CMCC, learn other things other than what they're teaching there. Learn the philosophy of chiropractic, learn some adjusting techniques other than diversified technique. Go visit other docs. See what's going on out there. I mean, we are such a diverse profession, and our diversity is what makes us so unique and so strong, because there's something for everybody, right?
And that's so interesting that you said that. I was on the tip of my tongue thinking that's what you want to protect and represent with the organizations that you have founded and been part of. It's not one version of chiropractic or another. It's like, this is what we know works. And that's all playing the same sandbox with the same tools. You respect me, I'll respect you. And let there be more freedom around that and respect for the differences in procedures and philosophy.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening. You have this group of academics that is trying to pigeonhole us into their way of practicing. Let's face it, they don't even practice. And it's like, listen, dude, I don't give a damn what you do in your office. That's your business. If you want to do Graston technique or, trigger point 30, I don't care. That's your business. But don't take away my right to practice the way I practice.
Yeah.
Family wellness.
The freedom piece comes in for both of us. It's
like lifetime care. If that's what the patient chooses, that's the patient's choice.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge advocate for patient choice. And you take away that diversity, they have no choice.
Right.
And that is not in the public interest, as we would say when we were when we try to get things done with the CCO, you have to appeal to the public people saying, this is not in the public interest. And I always said when I was on the CCO, what's in the public interest is also in the chiropractor's interest, and vice versa. There should always be that balance.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you've observed many different things in 30 years of practice.
Yeah.
How much time do we have to talk about that? But I mean, have there any? You've weathered some storms, I'm sure, within chiropractic. Right now, docs are dealing with the fact that they had to close their office in all internationally for some periods of time. They're dealing with rules and having to wear masks and sanitize and have all kinds of procedures forced upon them they don't want to comply with, but they're forced to. They're being dealt with attacks from other chiropractors, which I guess was always happening there too. But, of all the challenges that you've seen in our profession, is there anything that comes to mind as the most dramatic or the most challenging? And how did we get through it?
Well, we're there. I think we're at the point where we are really being challenged, particularly in Canada. It started in BC with the scope of practice. Right. We need to maintain the scope of practice that we enjoy here in Ontario. And because it's all neurologically based, like we have nerve system in our scope of practice. We have subluxation in our scope of practice. We have adjustment in our scope of practice. But the academics from CMCC and that other place somewhere down the road near Oshawa, I don't know the name, yeah, they're trying to push through a laundry list of conditions that we cannot treat, which would be so unique to all the regulated health professions in Ontario, because nobody has a list of conditions they can't treat.
Right.
Ridiculous. So, and sadly, the majority of chiropractors who practice in Ontario are coming out of CMCC. You know, they had that position paper that came out last year on, you know, anti-subluxation, anti-long-term care, anti-payment plans, anti-vitalism. And, you know, this is a document that CMCC was signature for with, you know, a bunch of other really obscure chiropractic colleges. But when you're dumping out 200 chiropractors a year that have that lack of philosophy and that lack of chiropractic philosophy and vitalism, they get to vote.
Right.
Right? They get to put people in place at the CCO. And that's our biggest challenge. And it's a little frightening at this point. And there is a movement to counteract what we've been doing, the COPO, that involves, you know, people like Scott Haldeman, Gene Moss, Pierre Cote, Rocco Guerrero. These are all, you know, rehab people as well, right? And they are a registered lobby group now. I think Alan Friedman is part of this group. So, you know, there's a real concerted effort to counteract what we're doing. So that's why we need the people who are really excited about chiropractic to stay excited about chiropractic and get involved when we ask them to. Write those letters, you know, and call their friends who may not be so involved, but would write a letter to the CCO. But it's very challenging. It's you know, it is pivotal for sure. Like when I get my friends like Gordy Burkholder, whose dad was a chiropractor, when guys like Gord are nervous, that makes me nervous. You know, some of the second generations that I hang out with that I know really well, when we get nervous, it's time to get nervous.
I would agree with that. As a younger doc here, you know, in this game, it doesn't feel like I'm that young, but I'm not in practice 30 years, maybe half as long as you. But when your mentors are concerned, it shows that there's more going on, and you know, everyone has their own understanding of things, you know, and different connections, and some people are well versed in the politics and know what's happening behind the scenes more than others, and some docs want to just bury their head in the sand and not think about it. So if you were to think about, like, right now, what would be your biggest advice to chiropractors at this given moment in time?
Get involved at your provincial level. Run for the boards, you know, put your name forward for peer assessors. Put your name forward, if you don't want to get elected, put your name forward for non-elected committee members. Yeah, I mean, or just keep up with the stuff that the CCO or your own governing, you know, out of province sends out regarding, you know, quality assurance. So that means changes to scope of practice. That has changed, and also advertising. So advertising in Ontario is now quality assurance. So that's where they're trying to get the laundry list of things we can't do. Like I said, it's kind of unique to most regulated health professions. And true to chiropractic, you've got that group that just continues to hammer away at limiting what we can do, who we can see, And it's just a slippery slope for sure.
Well, and this isn't even just happening. I mean, we both practice in Ontario, Canada. This is happening in every province in our
Yes.
country, let alone internationally in the States and other parts throughout the world as well. So, listeners, you may be hearing the plight of us in Canada, but you know that you're dealing with very similar regulations and changes that your states and governing bodies are trying to impose on you. So I think that message of getting involved and speaking up and not sitting quietly and waiting for other people to take action is probably an important reminder in in the world in general right now. We were talking in our pre-chat about just the heaviness I'm seeing in practice right now with regards to people feeling weary of the restrictions, the COVID stuff, the school challenges, just the emotional overwhelm and load that they've been carrying and staying brave and keeping their spirits alive, and positive for months and months and months and months now. And I've been saying the whole time, we have to be the light. We have to still be the light and give them some hope and remind them to take responsibility for their health and all the things that you can be doing, including staying positive. But change doesn't happen if we just sit back. So trying to get active in your communities and on any value or any belief system that you have that's being challenged or taken away from you, I think is crucial now more than ever.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I have friends now getting involved after 30 years because they realize that their way of practice is in great jeopardy. And I'm not saying it's too late, because it's never too late, but it's critical that we all, keep an eye on what's going on. Never take your foot off the gas. Never, right? Because, the instant you do that, that thin edge of the wedge, those eggheads rear their ugly head and try to, change the culture of chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. So. And I think it gets really easy for people to rely on the people who are natural leaders, someone like yourself, and the badasses, the rebellious, I want to see a change happen. Where do you think that kind of attitude comes from? People say sometimes that fearlessness and, that leadership is either innate and inborn in you, or I think it's partially who we are, our own personalities, but I think it's also learned with experience and choices that you have. But now we can't just sit back and let people who are naturally good at it like you do all of the work.
Yeah, because we burn out. I grew up as the daughter of a chiropractor in the 60s. I was, a teeny tiny little mouthy redhead, and I was Catholic. I got picked on a lot, and the old man was very good at instilling, don't take any shit. That's the bottom line. You don't take shit from people. And, that has been instilled with my, I got 2 younger brothers. I got 2 older sisters. We're all that kind of personality. And I don't know. That's just, but it's tiring, Melissa.
I feel you. Sometimes you feel like you're the only one carrying your warrior flag. And, but sometimes I have to also sit back and think, be who you are too, like we talked about throughout the show, and we all have our gifts and strengths and talents, and that's the reason why there's people who are in CEO leadership roles, any kind of leadership, let alone corporate or in a practice. They're organizing their movement in their community, or the Boy Scouts, something like that. There's people that have those innate talents and strengths, and there's people that are better off doing work. And they're happy to contribute. And it's the same thing in practice, right? There's lots of docs. We talked about this earlier. Like you wanted to be your own boss. And then you maybe get to a point when your daughter was born where you realize, like, I just want to be a chiropractor. I don't want to manage all these things. So a great situation for lots of docs is to be an associate or be an IC or do locums and do the work that you're called to do, not manage a whole business. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem arises when people aren't really clear on what they want and who they are, and they just start going and they never take a pause to step back and go, wait a second, is this actually what I really want?
Yeah. Even when I was the boss, I was never really a boss. I had a couple of employees and they ran the show and I did my thing and they knew their job and I knew mine, and I really was not much of a boss, actually.
Right. But it's the overwhelm of just managing too many different things. I was there too. I'm like, I don't want to manage all these people and another property, and I just want to be a chiropractor and a mom. and teach people how to be healthier. And so when I simplified everything in my life, everything got better. And
Sure.
so I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you at length, and I may have to make a trip. You're not that far from me.
No, you're where?
I'm in Collingwood. So about an hour, not quite an hour and a half probably from you.
Yeah, give or take. Many trips to Collingwood as a kid for skiing. So
yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate your time today and all that you're doing within our profession to help regulations protect us as docs. And I will, encourage you listeners, viewers to, get involved. Whatever way makes sense for you right now. Your voice matters. Your actions matter. Your community needs you. We need you as chiropractors. It's not a time right now to sit back and stay quiet. So
right.
If people want to connect with you more or these organizations that you're part of, what would be the best way?
Probably through Facebook, the COPO website or Facebook page, Chiropractors on Ontario. Probably the best. And, particularly if you're in Ontario and you're not part of that organization and you're actually willing to write a few letters now and then, that's really all it's going to take. It's not, it's not a whole, the group of us meet every 2 weeks on a Zoom call, and we've been doing that for over 2 years now. And that's kind of exhausting too. But that we don't need other people to do that. We just need, when we say, okay, folks, we need you, write a letter. These are the talking points. Send it off to the CCO. We need you to do that. And that's all that requires.
Well, because really the governing bodies, they need to know that there's not just 5 people that think this way. They need to know there's a volume, right? They need to hear from docs, and it doesn't have to be, again, getting behind the scenes and organizing things. It just needs to be responding.
And one of the things that I'll just add too is that a lot of people have this perception of, particularly the CCO, that, there's some big bad organization that if you write them a letter, somehow you're going to get investigated. And that's could not be farther from the truth. We have a really good council. We have a fantastic registrar, Joanne Wilson, who is very on board, with our philosophy in chiropractic. Don't be afraid to get in touch with the CCO. Don't be afraid to send them letters, call, what have you, get involved, because they're a very chiropractic friendly bunch.
And I would have to agree. I've had no challenge sending my own emails from time to time about questions or concerns I've had, and I appreciate them.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate them.
Yeah, they're protecting our way of practice.
Yeah. Okay, Michelle, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Listeners, you can connect with Dr. Michelle Whitney. Facebook, her practice connections are in the show notes there. And thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Melissa. Have a great day. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.